In a rare outburst, the US President Donald Trump on Saturday has once again criticized the Russian President Vladimir Putin for the continuing attacks in Ukraine. Now, questioning Moscow's unrelenting assaults in the civilian areas of Ukraine in recent days, Trump said that maybe Putin does not want to stop the war. Posting on Truth Social after his talks with the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Rome, Trump also said that maybe Putin has to be dealt with differently, through banking or through secondary sanctions. Now, Trump's post came on a day when Russia claimed that it has fully liberated the Kursk region from the control of Ukrainian forces. This comes as a big boost for Moscow, and the war has reached a critical stage. Now, President Putin has asserted that Kiev's adventure in Kursk has completely failed. The Kremlin has in fact put out that Putin has told Trump's envoy that he's ready to resume talks with Ukraine without any preconditions whatsoever.
I congratulate all personnel of all military units that took part in the defeat of neo-Nazi formations that invaded Russian territory in the Kursk region. The Kiev regime's adventure has completely failed, and the huge losses suffered by the enemy, including among the most combat-ready, trained, and equipped, including with Western models of equipment, forces of the Ukrainian armed forces, and these are assault units, special forces, will certainly be reflected along the entire line of combat contact.
Now, Putin was briefed by the army chief Valery Gerasimov, who confirmed that the Ukrainian forces have been expelled from their last positions in Kursk. Gerasimov has also credited the North Korean soldiers for Russia's military success. Now, earlier in the day, at Pope Francis's funeral in Rome, a brief but crucial encounter took place where the US President Donald Trump met with the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at St. Peter's Basilica. This marked their first meeting since their bitter White House clash. As Trump is pushing for a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia, the meeting has been called constructive by Kiev. During the service at St. Peter's Basilica, Trump also shook hands with the French President Emmanuel Macron and other world leaders in a sign of peace. Zelensky will also be meeting with the European Union's chief Ursula von der Leyen on the sidelines of the Pope's funeral. Von der Leyen and Trump have also agreed to meet again after talking at the Pope's funeral. The Kremlin says that both sides' position on ending the war are moving closer, but direct talks between Russia and Ukraine remains frozen. All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of where this war, of course, is headed, we are joined on this broadcast by retired Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis. He's a military expert and also host of Daniel Davis Deep Dive on YouTube. Colonel Davis, it's an interesting statement by Donald Trump where he probably seems to be indicating that perhaps so far in these negotiations he may have been getting played by the Russian president. He's now indicating that probably Putin is not serious enough because of these repeated missile and drone strikes that have taken place in civilian areas, and the American president is now suggesting that a different approach could now be taken. What's your assessment?
This is actually not the first time he said that. He said a version of it just a number of days ago, actually, where he said he was very angry and stopped Vladimir, he said in one of his Truth Socials. And then he'll another time go back and say he thinks things are moving in a good direction, that we're getting closer to a negotiated settlement, that the two sides are getting closer, all those kinds of things. So it's kind of a back and forth situation with President Trump. But I do think that he's accurate when he makes the statement there that it doesn't really look like that Russia wants to end the war. And although I think that needs a little bit of explanation, not that they don't want the war to end, they do, but that they are very, very consistent from the beginning. And I mean, that's everyone from Putin to Lavrov to Peskov and every the other statements coming out of Russia, that they either want a negotiated settlement on terms they can live with, or they'll keep fighting until they get it. And Trump's comment that the missiles keep flying, Russia's never said anything. They've never even implied that they would stop firing missiles or that they would stop the war. So this is a continuation of exactly what Russia has promised to do. But when you look at the bottom line of the balance of power, it continues to accelerate in the direction of Russia. So they don't have to make a negotiated settlement. There is no leverage on the Western side and the Ukraine side to compel them. So either Russia is going to get the terms it wants or it will keep fighting.
Russia, for it to get the terms that it wants, it needs to take these negotiations seriously. Now, saying stop Putin is very different from saying that probably the Russians need to be dealt with differently. Probably sanctions is something that Donald Trump is now talking about. Do you think there is a realization on Donald Trump's part that even though the Russians are negotiating, they're sitting with him for the negotiations, the Russians on the battlefield do not care what's happening in the negotiations?
I 100% agree that's the case. The Russians don't. They have unambiguously said that. When Gerasimov made that statement that you referred to earlier today, he said that we are continuing. We did not stop at the border with Kursk. We continued on into Sumy. They pushed the Ukraine side out of the Belgorod region. They're continuing there too. And Putin, in his comments, he said another important thing. He said that this is going to continue on to the defeat of the Nazi regime. He flat out said that today, so implying that either we'll negotiate an end to the Zelensky regime or we'll win it on the battlefield. But one way or the other, that's their objective, and it's never been anything different. So I think we need on the West to understand that he'll stop, Putin will, if he gets a negotiated settlement that gets what he calls the Nazi regime out of power, and I don't see anybody in the West agreeing to that. So that implies to me that this is going to continue on to a military solution.
All right, we'll have to leave there. Thank you very much indeed, Colonel Davis, for joining us with that perspective there.
Thank you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.